Hello and welcome to Expats Everywhere. If you would tell us your name, where you're from, and a little of your background.
Sure. I'm Leland Glenn Jones. I'm currently living in Singapore, just graduated high school. I'm an 18-year-old entrepreneur, author of the upcoming book Journey with Purpose. I own a company called T Quotes LLC, also the owner of motivational speaking and consulting company called Multi Motivation.
Man, that's fantastic. So, what countries have you lived in?
Only the US and Singapore, but in the US I've lived in about 10 different states.
What had you moving around so much?
I was always the kid of a military dad, so my dad being in the Navy, I was always traveling from state to state, so never in one place for too long.
So, normally we ask questions about what it's like working in X country, but since
Mm.
you're a student, what's it like being a student in Singapore? I hear that you're on some sort of different educational program. Can you
Mm.
tell us about it?
So I currently, I used to go to Singapore American School, and at Singapore American School, they had this really amazing opportunity offered to a very select few seniors of the class of about 300. They had an application process, and about 21 students made it into this program. And once you get in this program, what it is project-based learning. So everything is a series of projects that uh, you don't ever take a test or a quiz, and it's all about what project can you do for this unit. So if we have something about community outreach, it would be how can you help the community with a new project or whatever it might be. So um, a series of project-based learning, and it was my entire senior year, all day, all year long, and there was no like set period. We kind of made our own schedule, so we showed up to school kind of whenever we needed to do something or get something done, and it really gave me a lot of opportunities and freedom in my schedule to do what I'd like to do and what I was passionate about.
So, what came first, you doing this program or you being an entrepreneur?
I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit within me. I think ever since I can remember, I was always selling anything from Pokemon cards to lemonade to Nerf guns, all the way up to now where I own two companies. Um, so I always had that passion for entrepreneurship, selling things, and uh, and ultimately giving back is what I'm really passionate about. And I would say the entrepreneurship stuff came first, but the education at Singapore American School really enabled me to continue doing that and get school credit for it.
Well, so what does a typical day look like for you? I mean, how do you split school and running two companies?
Sure, that's a great question. So every single day, I set the clock and I'm up at 4:45 in the morning. If I didn't do that, I don't know how I would get the time to do the things I need to do. So my morning routine goes from about 4:45 to 7 in the morning. I'm up, I go to the gym, I get a nice workout in. I come back, I write out my goals for the day. Um, and then after I write out my goals, I take whatever time I have left, whether it's 15 to an hour left, I take just to like have some time to myself, kind of give back to myself before I can start giving back to others. And then right after that, I start cranking out my to-do list, my goals, and I start working on them. And I don't go to bed until they're done. So um, whether that means at 7 o'clock I get on the bus and I head to school, or if it's a weekend, I can start, or a holiday break, I can just start cranking out my goals, taking calls. Sometimes after the gym, after I take that time to myself, I'll start making calls to my employees back in the States, or I'll just start working on some things I gotta get done, and just don't sleep till it's till it's done.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like Singapore is a good hub for you and your business?
Oh yeah, I think Singapore just is. There's opportunities everywhere I go. Whether I'm talking to the cab driver or talking to a CEO of a company that I'm partnering with, or whatever it might be, I think just being in Singapore, there's like the success mentality that everybody is kind of striving for, um, and like I said, whether I'm talking to a cab driver who, I've learned some amazing things from the wisdom of a cab driver to, you know, talking to corporate business people as mentors. Um, it's been quite a phenomenal experience being kind of in the business hub of the world, and just meeting a lot of people and getting amazing opportunities to get mentors that are, they've been there, they've done it, and they know what they're talking about, and there's mentors everywhere that I can just learn from here in Singapore.
Cool. So let's shift gears a little bit, talk about some finances.
Okay.
For an SME founder, how much can someone expect to earn in Singapore?
So I would say on average, from a startup, 5,000 every 2 weeks to $5 every 2 weeks. It really depends on what you're willing to put into it. Will really determine what you get back out.
Okay, good. That leads me to the next question. How much is enough to live in Singapore? What kind of lifestyle can you live? Because I mean, our viewers know Singapore is quite an expensive place, but you know, what's the range? What do you need to be comfortable in Singapore?
Sure. I think due to the high living expenses in Singapore, I think to be comfortable in Singapore, depending where you live, whether you're in an HDB or you have your own house, I think if you made about 3,000 every 2 weeks, then you could live a comfortable life. You probably couldn't do too much, but I think 3,000 is probably the sweet spot between a lot and nothing, I guess.
Is that 3,000 USD or Singapore dollars?
That'd be US dollars.
Okay, US dollars
Yeah.
for a family or a single?
I'd say for a single.
For a
You could
single.
you could be really comfortable if you were single for $3,000. Yeah.
Okay. So this is going to look a little different for you because I'm imagining you're still living at home. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So what does a monthly budget look like for you as a student? Like,
Okay.
do your parents give you some money to spend, or the money that you spend, does it come out of the businesses that you run?
Sure. So I try to keep my personal life and my business's life completely separate for tax purposes. But my parents, they still buy me food and clothes. But other than that, everything else comes from what I earn and what I put into it. And a monthly budget would look, it really depends on our sales, honestly. Because I always give whatever the profits are. I usually put about 80% back into the company, and the rest goes to the employees, and then myself is last. So whatever our sales look like that month really determines how much the budget grows. But typically, I budget out my meals, my transportation, and my leisure time. So and what I do on the side. So.
All right, just to give the viewers an indication of what type of businesses you run, can you give like a 30-second kind of description of each business?
Sure. So the first one is a clothing company called T-Quotes LLC. You can find it at tquotesonline.com. It's a custom clothing company that we distribute worldwide. It's custom clothing, mostly T-shirts. We do hoodies, polo shirts, all kinds of different top wear, custom to your design. We also put out product lines, like we have a women's line going right now. We have summertime sales, springtime, and holiday specials as well. The other one I do is multi-motivation, where I go out and I do motivational speaking, consulting, and mentorship to people worldwide. I've spoken at conferences in Japan, United States, here in Singapore, schools. I speak at schools, companies, and other institutions as well.
Okay, cool. So the one business is more e-commerce, dealing online.
Right.
The second business, you're having to actually go and visit places
Yes.
and be there. How do you balance that with school?
Well, fortunately this year, as I mentioned previously, the Quest program at SAS has really allowed me to go out and do the things I want to do. And it all comes down to time management. The better I could manage my time, the better I have time for all this. So I always tell people, you know, Bill Gates he has 24 hours just like you have 24 hours, and it's how you spend that 24 hours. I always think back to the story, there's 86,000 seconds in a day, right? And imagine if you had $86,000 in your bank account and you had one day to spend all of it, and if you didn't, whatever you didn't spend went away. Obviously you'd spend every single penny in the account, right? So I always think back to how can I maximize every second of every day. So my whole day is planned out. Every morning I revisit my goals and I revisit my schedule, and I make sure I have time for whether it's a Skype call or I'm on a taxi ride to something like this interview. I'm making a business call in the taxi ride. So maximizing every hour of every day is really important. So traveling wise, I have to plan weeks or months in advance if I'm going to be traveling somewhere or away for a little while. But having an e-commerce company, it really, if there's Wi-Fi, my company's anywhere. So
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk a bit about life in Singapore. How should someone pack if they're going to move to Singapore?
pack for hot weather. So definitely pack for hot weather because it is brutal out here sometimes. So the humidity is crazy. Uh, it's always raining, so bring an umbrella. Even though the sun's shining in 20 minutes, it might not be. So um, if you want to pack, make sure you got flip-flops, tank tops, shirts. But it's also good to have like a nice outfit as well if you go downtown because it's a more classy area. So even though it's hot, a nice shirt would be good.
What are things that you can't find in Singapore that you recommend people should bring from their home country?
I guess depending on where you come from. I know for me, coming from America, I love Tex-Mex, and you can't get Mexican rice here. So although they have like aisles of rice, you can't get Mexican rice here. Um, but if you had to bring something from your home that you couldn't get here, I'd probably look at whatever your maybe your comfort foods or your snacks because those are hard to get out here.
So, a huge question that people have whenever they're moving from one country to another is about safety.
Mm.
So, is it safe in Singapore? Do you feel safe on a personal level?
I think I've never felt more safe than I have here in Singapore. I think no matter where you go, uh, there's public transportation. It sounds bad, but there's cameras everywhere. So if something were to happen, you know, they're gonna find out. So um, it's not. I'm never at any point scared of anything or some guy coming up and robbing me. Like I'm always comfortable walking down the streets, even if it's at 1 in the morning, or if I'm walking to the gym at 4:45. Like it's always. I've never felt more safe than I do here in Singapore.
Man, that's awesome. It's so nice when you can feel safe in the country that you live in. How do you meet people, and what do you do for fun?
Well,
When you're not working, of course.
well, yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing is like my work is what I love to do. So
Okay.
when I'm going out and meeting people, going to either networking conferences or, like I said, talking to the cab driver, one of my favorite things to do is just go out and meet people at wherever it might be, whether it's church, another church, uh, conferences, places I speak at. I always encourage the audience members to come up and meet me because I love to meet new people. Um, and I'm always, on the move, meeting new people everywhere I go, whether it's on the train, in the MRT, at a networking conference, or whatever it might be, whether it's organized or not. Really, everywhere I go I feel like it's just life is a series of opportunities, and I think meeting other people anywhere I go is another opportunity for me.
Cool. Well, this is a question kind of related to lifestyle. And we've been getting a lot of this on social media, people wanting us to ask these questions. This is the first time we've integrated this question into an interview.
Let's do it.
But what is healthcare like? I don't know if you can talk much
Okay.
about healthcare
Yeah.
here, but what is the healthcare like, and would you be confident in getting a procedure done here in Singapore?
Oh yes. I think that was one of my biggest things I was apprehensive about coming to Singapore, because I thought the healthcare system in the United States was all right, or it was good. But when I came here, the first time I got sick, I went into the Raffles Medical Hospital here, and in 30 minutes, I already had a diagnosed. I was already like they already had me a prescription ready to go. I had the meds in my bag. It was not expensive at all, and my insurance covered it as well later, anyways. And so it was in and out like that. In less than an hour, I was gone and happy and already on my way, enjoying my day. And also going to the dentist, also Raffles Dental, so they have Raffles Medical and Dental, etc. I went to go to the dentist and they could do the whole procedure quicker and more efficient. And I think like just getting like a cleaning done was higher quality, quicker, and cheaper than it would have been in the United States.
Wow. Okay, so 1 out of 10, how would you rate Singapore healthcare?
I'd give them a solid 9. Yeah,
Time
yeah, it's pretty good. Relative also to the countries surrounding it, it's
for sure.
oh yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're getting ready to wrap up here. We have 2 more questions. For one, what do you think about Singapore as a travel hub? Do you think it's a good travel hub for the region and the world? Tell us your thoughts.
I think Singapore, for region-wise, if you're traveling to any country around it, is super easy because for maybe $300 max, you can go to 15 different countries, and it's like for like a week as well. So it's I've traveled to 27 countries since I've lived here or something like that. Just like Thailand. I was there 2 weeks ago. I was in Thailand, Bali, Myanmar, Cambodia, whatever it might be. It's super easy to travel. Although if you're traveling outside of Asia, it might be a long haul. So traveling back to the States, I've done that quite a few times, and that one flight from Narita to the US or Singapore direct to San Francisco, that's like a 12 to 16 hour flight, and that is killer. But and I'd assume it's the same going to Europe, or I took a 10-hour flight to Australia as well. So but I do think traveling is super easy, and Singapore is also a great place to stay because the water's safe to drink. The transportation is from where you're staying to the airport is really easy, and it's really hard to get lost in Singapore, and everybody speaks English. So I think Singapore is a great place to stay. I call it Asia Light, because it's so easy compared to the countries around it.
So tell us, what are the pros and cons of living in Singapore?
Okay, so I'd say I'll end on a good note. Let's talk about the cons first. So the cons, there seems to be kind of a me first attitude at times, whether you're getting on the train or especially for expats. Not so much if you're Singaporean. I've been out with my Singaporean friends. It doesn't happen as much. But when I'm out by myself, they might cut in front of you in line, treat you a little differently, not in a bad way. It almost seems like they treat you differently in a better way, so you might get a little different treatment. But I'd say most of all is kind of the me first attitude. You see it a lot with the driving, and you see it a lot when you're trying to get on the train and everybody's just pushing and shoving to get on. The pros, however, is it's super safe here. I love how safe it is. No matter what time of the day, I'm safe to go out and do what I need to get done. Public transportation is phenomenal. Whether you're taking the train, bus, taxi, Uber, or whatever it might be. And now they have these O-bikes, these new bikes that you can rent and just ride a bike wherever you need to go. Their public transport is amazing, and it's relatively cheap, especially the train, the bus. They're like $2. You can go anywhere on the island. And it's very easy to get around here in Singapore, and it's not too big either. I also love the food. The food is crazy good. Whatever type of Asian food you want, they'll have it here, and it is phenomenal.
Man, that's awesome. Listen, Glenn, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for telling us about Singapore today. We want to give you a shout out though, because you've recently authored a book.
Yep.
So if you could tell us about your book,
Sure.
and then also tell people how they can get the book and how they can connect with you on social media, or whatever outlets you like to use.
Fantastic. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Leland Glenn Jones, or just Leland Jones. You can find me on Facebook. Instagram, you can find me at Leland_Jones878. My book coming out soon it's called A Journey with Purpose, the guide to starting and succeeding as an entrepreneur. It kind of takes my life and my story on how I started and how I got to where I'm at now as an entrepreneur, starting my first company at 17 years old, and how I got it to be here now. And I give practical tips and tricks so that if you have no idea where you want to start, or you have no idea where you are now, but you feel like you want to do something, you feel like there's something you want to do with your life, the book takes you from nothing to knowing what your purpose, like why you're here on the planet, to also giving you tips and tricks on how you can turn that into a company, and so much more. So it's going to be out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a few other bookstores. It comes out late June, so look for it in stores, looking about 31st of June, so check it out. And you can also find me on YouTube and see some of my motivational content at Leland Jones on YouTube.
All right, cool. We'll share that channel on our channel.
Great, right on. Thank you very much.
We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
For popping in. And
my pleasure. Thank you. Take care.